No, this is not clickbait. And at the same time, no, I'm also not going to be sharing with you a foolproof way of winning the lottery. What I am going to share, though, is how I started living parts of my life that I thought I'd only be able to live if I won the lottery. Because when I started doing this small, simple exercise, everything started to shift. So a while back, I hit this point in my life where just nothing really seemed to be working the way I wanted. I didn't like my job anymore. I wanted to quit that. I wanted to move countries, go across the world. I wanted to travel. I wanted to spend a lot of time being able to focus on my inner growth and healing, like do more meditation, do some yoga, do some retreats. I also wanted to get my health back in line, maybe do something about my diet. And yet there was just this thing in my head that I was like, well, for that, I need money. If I only had money, I could quit my job. If I only had money, well, then I could travel. If I only had money, I'd be able to get a dietitian to help me with something, or get a personal trainer, get a personal coach, whatever. And so I started getting obsessed with the idea of winning the lottery. And I knew that I couldn't win the lottery if I didn't play the lottery. So I actually really started playing the lottery. I played every week. And I was at the time, I was also reading a lot about manifestation and kind of all those things about positive thinking. And it was all about being very specific and also talking in the present. So I started saying things like, oh, I'm so happy with the $14 million I just won at the lottery, or I'm so grateful to see these $17 million in my bank account. But the more I read, the more I was reading also that like it's not just about saying these things, it's also about believing these things. And I realized I wasn't really believing what I was saying. And so I thought, okay, well, what would it take me to believe that I had won the lottery? What would it take me to really feel as if like I had won $17 million? And so I thought, well, for me to really believe it, I actually have to think like what I would do with $17 million. So I took out a pen and a paper and I started writing down what I would do with every single $17 million that I won. So here's what my list looked like. Ideally, I'd like to be able to give 10% of my earnings to charity. And I thought, well, if I win the lottery, I'd like to be able to do the same thing. Then I made a list of all the people I'd like to help. And that's friends and family and other people that I was like, okay, these are the people I'd like to be able to give money to. And it came out to be roughly about $10 million. And that left me with 5.3 million, which is a pretty big chunk of change. And that's when I started becoming very specific with what I would do. So my first thing I wanted to do was maybe take a break, go traveling, see, discover different places before I settled anywhere. I wanted to travel and see, discover new places, see if there were places I really like to live, and then choose where I would go. So that would be about a year travel. On that year around, I also wanted to do some retreats. Like I wanted to do some meditation retreats. I really wanted to, at the time, I was only doing kind of like guided meditations. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was thinking I would really like to learn a specific technique, or maybe do like a 10-day retreat or even a 20-day retreat. That included maybe doing some yoga retreat. I also wanted to do a kite surfing. I've always wanted to learn how to kite surf. And I've always wanted to learn how to do some cooking as well, certain cooking classes. I also wanted to look into a personal trainer, somebody who could help me do some exercises and get my body back in shape. I also wanted somebody to help me with my diet. I also wanted to do some just aesthetic things like get my teeth whitened, also go to the doctors and just do a full damn checkup. And then my plan was that after a year, I would want to buy a big farm with tons and tons of land on it, so I could kind of maybe be off grid or start a sustainable farming, and also a place that I could do my own retreats and have people come, or either do things myself or host people, or be able to have a place where people could come and maybe rent out the space for like a week of yoga or a week of cooking or a week of, I don't know, poetry and philosophy. Who knows? But just have a space that I could have to do interesting things on. So most of the money would be going into that because I wanted it to have a lot of land. I wanted to have some kind of access to some nice body of water, whether it's a river, maybe a lake, or just close to the ocean. And the list went on until I had spent each and every last dollar of the 17 million. And here's the interesting part. Once it was all on paper, I started to realize that some of the things on there were actually in my reach. Not all of them, of course. I couldn't just quit my job. I couldn't just, go traveling for a whole year. But some of the things on the list I could start going for. Like, for example, sure, my idea was to go on a meditation retreat, maybe somewhere in India. That's my ideal. Or at the time too, I was looking into Thailand. But I started realizing I could look around where I live right now. And so I did. Sure, I fell on some things that were very pricey and still out of my price range. But I also found a really cool meditation retreat not very far from my house, about an hour and a half away, and it was completely free. It was a Vipassana meditation course. They're all over the world and they are absolutely free. And I was like, oh, wow, I can actually go and do a 10-day meditation retreat and it's in my budget. And same thing for yoga. Sure, I'd love to go to Costa Rica and do a week retreat there, but nothing's keeping me from buying a mat and just doing it right here in this room with a YouTube video. And so that's what I started doing. I started checking off all the things on my list that I could do. And I realized that I had been waiting to like win millions to start actually doing some of the things that I could start doing right now. And it made me realize that I was sometimes using money as an excuse to not do things. And sure, there were some of those big ticket items like quitting my job or traveling around the world for a year that I couldn't really start doing. But I realized I could start saving up for them because I realized since they were on my list, they were really meaningful to me. And at the end of that year, I ended up saving enough money so that I could take a trip, something I hadn't done for about 10 years. And I just realized that if I put my mind to it and I started, saving up for it because it was important, then I made it happen. So now it's your turn. If you want to start living your lottery life, the life you think that you can't live until you win the lottery or have tons of money, I challenge you to do this. I challenge you to make a list of everything that you would do if you won $17 million. So for this simple exercise to work, I'm going to share 3 tips. 1, you have to be specific. You can't just say, oh, I'd give some of it away and I'd go travel. No, do like me, be very specific, line by line, until you've spent every single last dollar of that 17 million. And don't worry if you feel selfish or silly. Nothing is too big or too small on this list. Just go for it. 2, find the low-hanging fruits. Just like me in my exercise where I thought, okay, some of the things I can't do, but some of them you can. I'm sure there's some things on your list that you can start doing now. And of course, you might have to be creative. Like, for example, if you want to, start improving and spending time on your, inner growth and healing, and it requires all these books, well, can you actually borrow them from the library? Or maybe you can find them on Facebook Marketplace secondhand. Or maybe you want to have a personal trainer, or like me, you want to have somebody who helps you with your diet. Well, shout out to my friend Lisa Cerise, who says she uses ChatGPT to be her personal guide for her food and what to eat and how to do, certain diets. It's amazing. We have so many tools these days. We just sometimes need to look and think outside of the box. And sure, on that list, there's probably tons of things that actually will still require money. Things that in the end, yeah, maybe it would be easier if we won the lottery for. But those things are actually also breadcrumbs of what's really important to you. And I think that you can start maybe having a personal lottery fund where you put $5 a day, or maybe you can only afford $1 a day or $1 a week. But what's important is that you start taking steps towards those dreams and goals. And for the 3rd tip, as always, is going to be a tarot tip. I'm going to ask the cards what they think on how we can make this list and start living our lottery lives. Ooh, the 5 of Cups. Not really the card I was expecting for fun, winning lottery. I sometimes call this card the sad horse, and I think you can see why. There's something kind of heavy and dark about this card. And at the same time, you know what? I think this is a perfect representation of what this list can do. Because the 5 of Cups is all about focusing on what you don't have and being all kind of mopey and sad and depressed, but not noticing what you do have and what you do have access to. Like in this card, the horse is looking down and he's so depressed and so sad that he can't even notice that he has these 5 full cups right above him, shining light. And I think that's actually a really good representation of what actually doing a list and marking out everything that you want actually does, because it kind of helps you shift from focusing on what you don't have to focusing on what you can have, focusing on the things that you already can be working towards. Instead of focusing on, oh, well, if only I had money, you start thinking, what's possible for me where I stand now? What do I have now? What can I start now? And this simple mindset shift can really change everything because you start focusing on things that you can do. It gives you a lot more agency and you don't feel like you have to rely simply on luck. So no, I didn't win 17 million, but it also turns out that I didn't need 17 million to start feeling rich. All I needed was a piece of paper, a plan, and a change in perspective. So now it's your turn. Make a list and start living your lottery life because you don't need a ticket to start winning. That being said, if you do win, anyway, I'm wishing you lots of love and lots of laughter, and I'll see you next video. Thanks so much for watching.